This week, we're talking a little bit more about the feelings associated with fullness. And there's a lot to say here, so I'll just kind of give you a little taste of it. I've been thinking a lot about fullness because I've been running this 4-week finding and stopping a comfortable fullness group and really working to help people break it down and spend some real time there because, fullness is something that feels very emotional. And for that reason, it can be hard to engage with it and then stay there. I've also been thinking a lot about the entire intuitive eating practice and had the idea for an image that might help you think about it. It doesn't match the linear format of the intuitive eating principles 1 through 10. It's more about what are the forces that act on our ability to sense and respond to our needs in real time. So in this image, and it's attached, there's a link to it in this email, it's a tree. And the soil nourishing the tree is honoring your hunger and respecting your body. So recognizing that you need to eat and feeding yourself regularly with a balance of protein, carb, and fat, and committing to taking care of your body, which includes feeding your hunger, regardless of how you feel about it. That's the soil. And then the soil nourishes the growth of the tree so that we can focus on satisfaction, because that is the core principle. That is the center of the mandala of intuitive eating. When we prioritize satisfaction, we can ride that razor's edge of what's going on from moment to moment. What do we need? What are we feeling? What choices do we have available to us, and what choices will we make? How will we respond to the choices that we made? So through that process of focusing on satisfaction, we make peace with food. And then through the sunshine of coping with our emotions with kindness, and the rain of the thought work of challenging the food police and giving yourself unconditional permission to eat, making peace, giving yourself unconditional permission to eat, I guess. All of these efforts then culminate in our ability to focus on fullness, movement, and nutrition, right? These are the sort of advanced practices, fullness, movement, and nutrition, that we get to after we've done a lot of groundwork. So take a look at this image just to have a new way of thinking about the entire process. And then think about specifically when you're working with fullness, check in with those other things. Do you have the nutrients necessary for your little ecosystem to focus on fullness or movement or nutrition? And then, and part of the answer might have to do with the emotions that you experience around fullness. So it is emotional to say, I've had enough, when for the majority of your time consciously eating and choosing what and when and how much to eat, you've been focused more on eating as little as possible or controlling your appetite, not overdoing it. And so it's sort of a leap of faith then to just say, oh, actually, I'm not going to listen to all those things that tell me what a serving is or how much I should be eating or not eating. I'm going to listen to my body to tell me, oh, these sensations, I think, are telling me I've had enough. I'm going to stop there and see if that actually works for me. But even when you start to do those experiments, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have strong feelings about it. There could be fear or like agitation or restlessness, a kind of anxiety about not getting enough, because you know what, let's be honest. There were times when you didn't get enough. Some of us experienced food insecurity where it was completely out of our control. And then a lot of us experienced dieting where we were deprived, and it sort of looked like we were doing it to ourselves, but it was really the diet culture doing it to us, through us. We had internalized that idea and did it to ourselves. There can be sadness at the end of a meal, right? A meal and our enjoyment, just like all phenomena, have a period of arising, and then it levels off, and then it dissolves. And the dissolving is the part of an eating experience where some of us experience a lot of difficulty, right? We want it to keep going. We want the pleasure to keep going. But nothing lasts forever. And so if we find ourselves continuing to eat, maybe to the point of discomfort, when what's actually happening in the moment is that the eating experience is dissolving, our bodies are sending us the signals that we've had enough, maybe think about this as like fighting with reality. And I'm not saying that accepting reality is always going to feel good, but at least you know you're dealing with the truth. At least you know you're dealing with what's actually happening in your body, not my truth, not somebody else's truth. This is about what's happening in your body, right? This is an internal process that's very active. You know, the Thanksgiving holiday is coming up. Maybe there are certain foods that you're not going to have access to again for a while, you know, and that might cause you to want to hold on to the eating experience more, to the point where you overeat. Now, I don't think it's a problem to overeat, you know, occasionally. Overeating is part of normal eating. And particularly on the holidays, when maybe the eating schedule is a little bit different, like a lot of people eat like a big lunch for Thanksgiving, so they might be extra hungry. Please do yourself the favor of not starving yourself prior to that big meal, you know, so that you can go into that meal gently hungry enough that the food tastes good, but not so hungry that you feel cuckoo. That's not going to be a recipe for enjoyment. And notice, you know, I always think of the situation like, what if you've eaten to the point of comfortable fullness, maybe you're even a little past that, and then Aunt B brings out your favorite dessert. What do? Right? Do you eat it because you might not get it for a long time again, and you don't know if there's going to be any left after everybody else attacks it? Do you wait and take the risk that it might not be there later? This is what I would do. Take a piece, hide it. I did this at my sister's years ago. I hid something in a jar on her counter because I was like, I can't eat that right now, but I really want to eat it later. And I forgot about it for like, she called me like weeks later and she's like, what the hell? So, but that's a great scenario to contemplate, you know, because part of the way you might end up handling it is like accepting the sort of disappointment and heartbreak of like, oh, I don't get to have Aunt B's carrot cake. That sucks. That feels crappy to me, and I don't like it. But I'm also not willing to eat it in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable or in pain. Ugh, that's hard. This is a rock and a hard place, right? So give some thought to the feelings that you experience around fullness and what it feels like to say, I think I'm done. Could you make space for all of those feelings? Maybe write them down. Maybe look at the feelings wheel. If you just go on feelingswheel.com, there's a great graphic that names all of these different feelings that we might have. And it might help you identify exactly what's arising for you in moments like that. So take a look at the tree image, see what you think. Consider whether this is a good time for you to be focusing on fullness. You know, are the different pieces in place? And if so, could you make room for the feelings? Could you make room for the feelings that you experience around fullness? Because they're important. They're important. They tell you a lot about your relationship with food and your body. They tell you a lot about whether your nervous system feels ready to feel discomfort. And they tell you a lot about the sort of nuanced experience of pleasure. So, would love to hear about your experience as always, and I hope this is helpful.